February 10th, 2026, 0317 local time. The Persian Gulf, the USS Stout is alone. Not strategically alone, the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group is 90 nautical miles to the south. But tactically, operationally, in this moment, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer is the only American warship within 40 miles. She is conducting what the Navy calls presence operations, showing the flag, reminding everyone who watches. And in the Persian Gulf, everyone watches that American power projection is not theoretical. The ship's crew of 329 has been at sea for 67 consecutive days. They have conducted 23 transit escorts, intercepted 4 suspicious vessels, and tracked Iranian military activity across thousands of square miles of contested water. Tonight should be routine. Another patrol, another data collection mission, another night of watching radar screens and drinking bad coffee. At 3:17, routine ended. I am your host at U.S. Defense Review, where we analyze the military operations that define our era. What happened to the USS Stout and what happened in the 29 minutes that followed would demonstrate both the vulnerability of modern warships and the terrifying speed of American retaliation. Let us set the scene properly, because context matters. The Persian Gulf in August 2026 was not the Persian Gulf of previous years. 4 months of escalating confrontations had transformed the waterway from a tense but manageable environment into something approaching a combat zone. Every American ship operated under modified rules of engagement. Weapon systems stayed ready. Crews maintained heightened readiness around the clock. Sleep was rationed. Nerves were strained. The Iranians had adapted too. Their fast attack boats no longer operated in predictable patterns. Their shore-based missile batteries had been dispersed and hardened after previous American strikes. Their intelligence networks had improved. They knew American patrol schedules. They tracked American movements. They waited for opportunities. The opportunity came at 3:17. The Stout was transiting northwest, following the standard shipping lane that hugs the Saudi coastline. Her ASPY-1D radar was tracking 47 contacts, merchant ships, fishing boats, oil platforms, and 3 Iranian patrol craft maintaining a respectful 15 nautical mile distance. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming, but the radar was not seeing everything. According to declassified assessments released months later, the Iranians had developed a new tactic. They called it shadow launching, positioning mobile missile batteries behind terrain features that blocked direct radar observation, then using forward spotters to provide targeting data. The Stout's radar could see the patrol craft. It could not see the NOR anti-ship missile battery hidden behind a rocky promontory 31 nautical miles to the northeast. At 3:17:14, that battery fired. The NOR missile, a Chinese C-802 variant manufactured under license in Iran, launched from its concealed position. It climbed briefly, then dropped to sea-skimming altitude. Speed Mach 0.9. Flight profile 15 meters above the water. The Stout's ASLQ-32 electronic warfare system detected the missile's radar seeker at 3:17:41, 27 seconds after launch, 27 seconds of invisibility. In naval combat, that is an eternity. The system immediately classified the contact as hostile. Alarms sounded throughout the ship. The Combat Information Center erupted into controlled chaos. Time to impact, approximately 85 seconds. Let me walk you through what happens on a warship when an anti-ship missile is inbound, because Hollywood gets this wrong, and understanding the reality is essential to understanding what followed. The Aegis combat system does not wait for human decision-making. It is designed to react faster than humans can think. Within 2 seconds of threat classification, the system had calculated an engagement solution and was requesting weapons release. But weapons release requires human authorization. Someone has to push the button. Someone has to take responsibility. That someone was Lieutenant Commander Patricia Vance, the tactical action officer on duty. She had trained for this moment for 11 years. She had run this scenario in simulators hundreds of times. She had never done it for real. At 3:17:44, 3 seconds after detection, she authorized weapons free. The first SM-2 Block 3A missile left its vertical launch cell at 3:17:46. The second followed 1 second later. Standard doctrine, 2 interceptors per threat for high-confidence kills. The SM-2 is fast, Mach 3.5, but the engagement geometry was challenging. The Noor was already inside 20 nautical miles and closing. The intercept would happen at close range, leaving minimal margin for error. At 3:18:52, the first SM-2 reached its target. Miss. The missile's proximity fuse detonated, but the Noor was 12 meters outside the lethal radius. Fragmentation struck the Iranian missile's airframe, but did not destroy it. The Noor kept coming, damaged but functional, its radar seeker still locked on the Stout. At 3:18:54, the second SM-2 struck. This one hit. The Noor disintegrated 4.7 nautical miles from the Stout. Debris fell into the Gulf. But the engagement was not over. What the Stout's crew did not know, what they could not know, was that the Iranians had fired 2 missiles, not 1. The second Noor had launched 8 seconds after the first, following a slightly different flight path. It had been masked by the radar signature of the lead missile, a technique called trailer hiding, using one missile to screen another. The ASLQ-32 detected the second missile at 3:18:31, the moment the first Noor's destruction revealed what was behind it. Time to impact, 23 seconds. 23 seconds is not enough time to launch another SM-2 and guide it to intercept. The engagement envelope had collapsed. The Phalanx CIWS, the ship's last line of defense, was already tracking. The 20mm Gatling gun began calculating a firing solution. At 3:18:47, the Phalanx opened fire. 4,500 rounds per minute. A continuous stream of tungsten penetrators reaching toward the incoming missile. At 3:18:51, rounds began striking the Noor. The missile's flight path wobbled, its guidance system degraded. At 3:18:53, the Noor's warhead detonated. Not from a direct hit, from accumulated damage. The Phalanx had shredded enough of the missile's airframe that something critical failed. But the detonation happened 340 meters from the Stout's starboard side. 340 meters sounds like a safe distance. It is not. A Noor missile carries a 165-kilogram semi-armor-piercing warhead. When that warhead detonates, it creates a blast wave that travels at supersonic speed. It throws fragments, some as small as ball bearings, some as large as dinner plates, in every direction. At 340 meters, the blast wave was reduced, but not eliminated. The Stout rocked violently. Sailors were thrown against bulkheads. Equipment shifted. Alarms multiplied. The fragments were worse. Traveling at thousands of feet per second, the warhead fragments reached the Stout in less than a second. Most splashed harmlessly into the water. Dozens struck the ship's superstructure. One fragment, later estimated at 2.3 kilograms, penetrated the hull near the waterline. It passed through an equipment room, narrowly missed a sleeping sailor, and lodged in an interior bulkhead. 3 smaller fragments struck the bridge windows. The reinforced glass held, but the impacts startled the bridge crew. One fragment struck Petty Officer Second Class James Morrison, who was on the weather deck conducting a routine inspection. The fragment hit his left thigh. He went down immediately. The Stout was not sinking. She was not even critically damaged, but she had been hit. An American warship had taken fire from an Iranian missile. A sailor was bleeding on the deck. The time was 3:18:54. Captain Robert Chen reached the bridge at 3:19:12. He had been in his cabin when the engagement began, the first time he had tried to sleep in 40 hours. The sounds of missile launches and alarms had brought him running. What he found was controlled chaos. The Combat Information Center was tracking the remaining Iranian patrol craft. All 3 were now accelerating away at maximum speed. Damage control teams were assessing the hull penetration. The corpsman was treating Morrison on the weather deck. The communications officer was trying to establish contact with 5th Fleet, and Lieutenant Commander Patricia Vance was asking the question everyone was thinking. "Sir, do we have weapons release authority for the launch site?" Captain Chen faced a decision that would be studied at the Naval War College for decades. He had a wounded sailor. He had a damaged ship. He had clear evidence of an Iranian attack. The missile debris, the radar tracks, and the trajectory analysis all pointed to a specific location on the Iranian coast. Standing rules of engagement authorized him to respond to hostile fire. He did not need permission from Fifth Fleet. He did not need authorization from CENTCOM. He could respond immediately. But there were complications. The Stout carried Tomahawk cruise missiles. She could strike the launch site within minutes. But Tomahawk strikes on Iranian territory had strategic implications beyond tactical response. Every previous American strike on Iranian soil had been authorized at the highest levels. Chen could also engage with his 5-inch gun if the target was within range. It was not. The launch site was 31 nautical miles away. The gun's maximum range was 24 nautical miles. He could pursue the fleeing patrol craft, but they had not fired the missiles. They were spotters, not shooters. Destroying them might feel satisfying, but it would not address the actual threat. Or he could report to Fifth Fleet and await guidance. That was the safe decision, the career-preserving decision, the decision that kept authority with senior leadership who understood the broader strategic context. Chen had 29 minutes to make his choice. He made it in 90 seconds. At 3:20, Captain Chen ordered weapons release on the confirmed launch site. 4 Tomahawk missiles, coordinates derived from the incoming missile trajectories. He then reported to Fifth Fleet. Stout engaged by Iranian anti-ship missiles. 1 sailor wounded. Minor hull damage. Counter-battery fire initiated. 4 T-LAM inbound to launch site. Request additional strike authorization for expanded target set. The report reached Vice Admiral Santos at 3:23. She had 2 options. Countermand Chen's strike, which was possible but complicated since the missiles were already in flight, or expand it. She chose expansion. At 3:26, supplementary strike authorization was granted. The logic was simple. Destroying the firing battery would not eliminate the remaining batteries. Those batteries would still exist tomorrow. The expanded target set included 3 additional suspected missile positions along the same coastline. Intelligence confidence varied. 1 site was confirmed active. 1 was probable. 1 was possible. After a direct attack on an American ship, possible was sufficient. Additional assets were already moving. The cruiser USS Vela Gulf, 60 nautical miles south, began launching Tomahawks at 3:31. 8 missiles, 2 per target. The destroyer USS Mitcher, 45 nautical miles west, added 4 more. Her captain had monitored the engagement in real time and pre-positioned weapons for rapid response. The total strike package consisted of 16 Tomahawk cruise missiles targeting 4 Iranian military installations. The first missile struck at 3:44. The Noor battery that had attacked the Stout was positioned on a rocky outcropping overlooking the Gulf. 2 launcher vehicles, 1 radar unit, 1 command vehicle, approximately 20 personnel. The Tomahawk approached from the northwest following a circuitous route designed to avoid air defenses. It descended to an attack altitude 3 meters from the target. Terminal guidance locked onto pre-programmed coordinates. Impact was precise. The first missile struck the command vehicle, killing 4 operators instantly and destroying coordination capability. The second missile arrived 11 seconds later, striking the radar unit. The battery was now blind and leaderless. The third and fourth missiles hit the launcher vehicles. Secondary explosions confirmed propellant detonation. The battery that attacked the USS Stout ceased to exist at 3:45, but the strike continued. At 3:46, additional missiles began arriving at secondary targets. The first was a suspected Noor battery 12 kilometers east of the confirmed site. Satellite imagery had shown launcher-shaped objects under camouflage. Intelligence assessment indicated 70% probability of an active installation. 2 Tomahawks struck the site. Later analysis confirmed it was a decoy, wooden mock-ups intended to attract missiles. Iranian forces were adapting. The next secondary target was a coastal radar installation providing early warning, and targeting data for multiple missile batteries. 2 Tomahawks struck. Both destroyed legitimate military equipment. The radar was eliminated, and approximately 8 personnel were killed. The third secondary target was the most controversial. Intelligence identified a warehouse complex 400 meters from a civilian neighborhood. Analysts believed it stored missile components, guidance systems, warheads, and fuel. Destroying it would degrade long-range strike capability, but proximity to civilians created risk. Tomahawk guidance is precise, with circular error probable under 10 meters. But precision is not perfection, and secondary explosions can spread. Authorization included timing restrictions to reduce civilian presence. At 3:48 local time, most residents were asleep and traffic was minimal. At 3:48:23, 2 Tomahawks struck the warehouse complex. Primary explosions remained contained. Structures collapsed inward. Fire response later confirmed combustion consistent with chemical propellant, supporting the intelligence assessment. No confirmed civilian casualties were reported. Iranian state media claimed otherwise, but satellite imagery showed no damage to the adjacent residential area. The final missiles from the Mitcher struck at 3:51. Their target was a mobile missile battery that had been observed relocating 6 hours earlier. The coordinates were derived from predictive modeling. Where would the battery go based on known Iranian doctrine? The modeling was wrong. Both missiles struck empty terrain. The battery had moved to a location the analysts had not predicted. This is the reality of military operations. Not every strike succeeds. Not every target is where you expect it to be. The fog of war does not lift simply because satellites and computers exist. At 3:52, 29 minutes after the Stout was hit, the strike was complete. 16 missiles, 4 target sites. Results: 1 confirmed battery destroyed, 1 radar installation destroyed, 1 logistics facility destroyed, 1 decoy destroyed, and 1 empty field cratered. The cost to Iran was significant, but not crippling. 1 operational missile battery destroyed, 1 radar site destroyed, and unknown quantities of stored material lost. An estimated 30 to 40 personnel were killed. The cost to America was 1 wounded sailor, minor ship damage, and 16 Tomahawk missiles valued at approximately $1.5 million each. Petty Officer Morrison was evacuated to Bahrain by helicopter the following morning. The fragment had missed his femoral artery by 2 centimeters. He would walk again after 6 months of rehabilitation. He would never return to sea duty. The Stout completed her patrol and returned to Bahrain for repairs. The hull penetration required 2 weeks in dry dock. The psychological impact on her crew required longer to assess. Captain Chen received a letter of commendation from the Chief of Naval Operations. His decision to initiate counter-battery fire without waiting for authorization was judged tactically sound and strategically appropriate. The letter did not mention that he had also been fortunate. Fortunate that the Tomahawk struck legitimate targets. Fortunate that no civilians were killed. Fortunate that escalation did not spiral further. The diplomatic aftermath followed a familiar pattern. Iran condemned the American action as aggression. They released footage of destroyed civilian infrastructure, footage later determined by independent analysts to be from a different location. The United States defended the strikes as proportional self-defense. Pentagon briefers presented satellite imagery, radar tracks, and missile fragments recovered from the Stout. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. Russia and China blocked any resolution condemning either side. The session ended without action. Oil prices increased by 8% before stabilizing. Insurance premiums for Gulf shipping rose again. In the Persian Gulf, the calculus of deterrence adjusted once more. The 29-minute response demonstrated something important. American commanders did not need Washington's permission to respond. Authority had been delegated. Weapons were ready. Doctrine was clear. Attack an American ship, and the response would come fast. Not fast enough to prevent the initial attack, because no defense is perfect, but fast enough to ensure the attacker paid a price. Whether that speed would deter future attacks was impossible to know. Iranian leadership might conclude the cost was acceptable. They might conclude improved tactics could achieve better results. They might conclude escalation served strategic interests. What remained certain was that the night of August 4th added another data point to the continuing pattern of limited naval warfare. Ships struck, missiles launched, targets destroyed, and casualties sustained. The pattern was accelerating. Each engagement taught both sides something new. Each response raised the stakes. Each escalation narrowed the distance between limited conflict and unlimited war. The Persian Gulf had become a laboratory. The experiment was testing how far two nations could push each other before something broke. On August 4th, nothing broke. The Stout survived. Iranian forces absorbed their losses. The world continued turning, but the margin was shrinking. 29 minutes from attack to response, 2 centimeters from a severed artery, 340 meters from catastrophe. Modern warfare exists within these margins. It always has. Stay informed, stay vigilant. I will see you in the next one.